Good evening, guys. Welcome to Saturday night. It's Saturday night. It is Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. Hope you all had a great week. It's great to see everybody. We're already off to a great start. Make sure that you smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you share the stream if you would be so kind. So lots of topics to obviously cover tonight. So many so that I'm not actually going to even be able to get to anything related to Candace Owens or Charlie Kirk as of right now. There does not appear to be anything of significance in terms of new developments in the story. I know right now Candace is in the midst of going after some of these uncouth pastors, really shady business to say the least. So that should come as no surprise to anybody. But there are a number of areas to cover this evening. Yes, JD, I did see that. It's great to be alive. You know, being alive is sometimes a burden, but it's also a privilege. No matter how bad things get, and things certainly get bad. I do want to say that, you know, I hope that our channel and what we provide here is at least somewhat enjoyable. I know it's not the cure for what ails you with this broken economic system that we're living in right now. But if you do take some joy out of what we are bringing to the table on a regular basis, then I'd like to think we're doing something right. And so with that said, to good health and to a lot of wonderful shows ahead. As a matter of fact, we've got a somewhat of a murderer's row lineup coming up this week. So better set your clocks for 7 p.m. Monday, Thursday, and next Saturday. On Monday, we are going to, I don't want to botch his name, but Lord knows I will if I don't say it right, because it's all Greek to me, as the saying goes. But Demetrius Laskaris. I know that there were a few of you in the chat wanting us to have him on as a guest. So
Laskaris.
Thanks. Laskaris will be our guest on this upcoming Monday. He's a great investigative journalist up in Canada, and he has really been on fire in regards to what's going on, not just with Israel, but a lot of the brouhaha coming from the Epstein files, among other things. On Thursday, we are going to have a guest that I personally have wanted to get on our channel for a very, very long time. He is probably the closest thing to a male doppelganger to Jen's politics, and that is Jacob Berger, who has been absolutely on fire. He has been doing fantastic work, as you guys know. He has been making incredible content. He was on one of the Freedom Flotillas, and the way I came to be aware of him was when that crazy Zionazi lady went up to a bunch of protesting Orthodox Jews in New York City, and again, blonde hair, blue eyes, crying her eyes out about how that's really their land, and you're totally crazy for trying to put up the Palestinian flag. Well, Jacob Berger was one of the people that was in the crowd, basically in his very polite way, flipping off the lady and showing his Star of David, saying, "Get out of here, lady, you don't know what you're talking about." And of course, she had a conniption fit. As a result, he has been doing, as I said, fantastic commentary, and he has been putting his body and his life on the line to try to help in any way, shape, or form the Palestinian people. So to say that we are grateful to have him would be an understatement. I'm sure it'll be a great conversation. And then next Saturday, I will be speaking one-on-one with John Popola. If you guys are not familiar with him, he has a YouTube channel in which he has some very interesting critiques of the current economic system. He's, I would say, fairly conservative, but not totally lost. And I do think that there is an opportunity here to have sort of a meeting of the minds. And that'll be a productive conversation, to say the least. And that, of course, brings us into Thanksgiving week. What can we be thankful for this year? Not too much. But we have to use what we can with what is in front of us, and continue to try to make people see, as best we can, the perils and the failures of our system, what needs to change, revolutionarily speaking, of course, because it is inevitable that we are heading down that road. And one thing that ends up happening in many instances is a lot of people, when things start to go bad, start to hunker down. They start to basically try to fortify their own positions within the broken system because they don't want to admit that the way that they got to the top, or at least close enough anyway that they can touch it, that there was anything wrong in the way that they got there. And I have my suspicions about certain people that were able to get to the top. And that's what this first hour is going to cover. I rarely ever discuss Bill Maher anymore because I think it's a waste of time. But I decided to give a glance to his new rules segment last night. And it should probably come as no surprise that what Bill decided to do was go after socialism in a way that completely flies in the face of everything that he used to say. So this is going to be a two-parter. I'm going to show you what he said last night, and then I'm going to contradict him with his own words from this past decade. Not that far back. We're not talking 30 years ago. We're talking less than 10. So this is Bill Maher last night on New Rules.
Finally, New Rule Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party.
Is that so? Well, I have a theory. Zohran is going to have an opportunity in the first few months of his mayoral run to make a move or two. And what that move is, or what he chooses to do, will be up for debate. I personally think if he goes for the government-run grocery store in each of the 5 boroughs, that's going to have a profound effect on grocery prices throughout the city. And that will be met, with rare exception, with universal acclaim. But Bill has a different theory about how that is going to be received. He has more to say.
Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Now, Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement, but
do not think for one second that they do not purposely mispronounce his name. Mamdani, that's not an accident. Considering what a intellectual Bill projects himself to be, he knows how to pronounce his name properly. He just chooses not to.
But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who before the 24 election said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get fucking torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen.
Governor Spankberger, I'll mispronounce her name on purpose. This is a person who was right at the front of the line saying, end the shutdown with no concessions. Why? Funny you should ask. This is a person who represents more than any other part of Virginia. Let's be honest, if you are a Democrat, you are representing Northern Virginia. Not that there aren't other parts of Virginia where the Democratic vote is strong, like Richmond and to a lesser extent, Charlottesville. The point is, the bread is buttered at the very top. And the Washington, D.C. suburbs to the south are some of the most affluent suburbs in the world. And they make sure that Spangenberger got into office, and in return, she does their bidding. We have to stop looking at these elected officials as anything other than the tools of capital that they are. So Spangenberger, in her infinite wisdom, is the person who is going to tell you how things should be when it comes to the economic plight of this country. And that, of course, is who Bill wants to highlight. Shocker.
Typical, am I right, ladies? Well, at least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win.
You know, the amazing thing that no one talks about when they say, oh, if only we just move to the center and went as far to the right politically as we possibly can to win in Trump country. You know what they failed to tell you about those particular representatives like Marie Gluestenkamp up in Washington state? They vote almost identically to the most hardliner GOPers. Why would you have to vote red if you just have what you want by voting blue, no matter who, right? That's the part that Billy Boy doesn't want you to talk about. Doesn't want you to talk about how do these particular representatives represent. How they represent is very corporate friendly, to say the least. Jared Golden would know. That's what he's been doing in Maine for a very long time. And in this case, Billy Boy doesn't want to take the next natural step. You know, kind of like Zionists, when people wonder how they got kicked out of 110 countries. How did that happen? Oh, it's because people hate the Jews. That's the reason? Or could it be because maybe there are some less than enjoyable, more like detestable qualities of their particular culture that no one wants to deal with? So when we think about the centrist shit libs that dominate so much of partisan politics, Billy Boy is speaking from a very comfortable, affluent position, not that of working people. But that's a story for another day. Am I right, Billy Boy?
And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office. Gosh, if only someone had been saying that all along. But you know, welcome home. Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you.
You just answered why Zohran Mamdani got elected mayor of New York City. You just answered why people are tired of the Democratic Party. You just answered why you live in a $20 million mansion in the Hollywood Hills and the average person in this country has to share an apartment with people they don't know. So again, this is a class war, nothing more. Bill will never say those words again because of how much things have changed. He was speaking a different tune not too long ago, and he was living very comfortable at the time. But I have a feeling he got a talking to. And I think there's more to it than just a simple, you got to stop talking like this. There's more to it.
People will reject any economic system where there's a strange hair on the soap. No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge. So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to fuck. Thing is, socialism will fuck you because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked.
So has capitalism. The only reason you're not saying that is because capitalism works for you. Socialism wouldn't work for you because you wouldn't be nearly as rich and powerful if you had to deal with that system. There would be a check on your wealth hoarding. There would just be a check on the system, period. And you know this. He will not say that socialism doesn't work. And again, I am of the mind of I believe in a blended system. Social democracy, if you will. But Billy Boy is not even going there. He's not even suggesting that this is the case. But again, I play this because this is not the tune that he has always played. His tune was very different not that long ago. Remember, initially, this guy was in favor of Bernie Sanders, probably until he knew that Bernie was serious. Initially, it was sweet, and he batted him on the head and thought, yeah, Bernie, that's sweet. Run for president. I want to see you win. The second it looked like he could win, then he said, oh, okay, well, my boss has told me that I can't talk like that anymore, because now it's getting serious.
Like Kevin Federline. I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea.
That's not what North Korea is. North Korea is a totalitarian dictatorship. You know this, and yet this is the country you choose to use as an example. You don't choose to use a country that is much more socialist than America is, like Australia, Japan, Germany, France, Spain, the UK, Ireland, Scotland. How about Morocco? How about Canada, eh? How about Mexico? Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Hungary. You know, Hungary. Point is, Billy Boy knows what he's doing, and it's a form of propaganda. He knows it. Everyone else knows it. This is a guy who once used to advocate for single-payer health care. Remember those days? Yeah, he got his mind right.
Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a fucking mess.
And of course, the SEALs clap, but no one talks about the fact that the biggest mistake that Venezuela made is that it attached its currency to the US dollar. And so what have we done since Hugo Chavez took over the country? And the country decided not to do business with us when it came to their largest supply of crude oil under its soil in the world. We decided to push their inflation into nightmare territories. This is the part that Billy Boy will not talk about. He will not mention the sanctions ever, because it would go against his narrative. It's just that simple. So again, this is a piece of propaganda that he's pushing out. There's not even a little bit of truth. This is lies across the board.
It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zohran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
All right, now that's just outright bigoted, but we shouldn't expect anything less from a Zionist like him. Now, should we?
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor fuck in the Oval Office last week.
Once again, not telling the truth about why that fell apart. And again, this is a guy who once advocated always about the need for a single-payer healthcare system in the United States. But now we don't have it. And we're nowhere closer than we've ever been before. In fact, we're as far away from it as we could possibly be in this moment. And this is how this man talks? Well, Billy Boy wasn't always like this. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that he was singing a completely different tune, even about the term socialism.
Finally, new rule, since this year's presidential race features both an unabashed socialist and a bona fide capitalist pig, someone needs to explain to the free market solves everything crowd that when it comes to socialism, you're soaking in it. Marco Rubio says, if you want to live in a socialist country, why not move to a socialist country? Oh, you mean like Florida, where everyone's on Social Security? Yes, so many Americans hate the word socialism, but love the concept. Medicare, unemployment, disability, farm subsidies. Forget the transgender debate. What America really needs is a separate bathroom for welfare queens. You know, back in February when democracy was still serious and Trump was still a joke, 66% of young people told pollsters that corporate America, quote, embodies everything that is wrong with America. And that, more than anything else, is what this election is about. And what side you're on in that debate is all about your generation. Older Americans are more religious, and America's real religion is capitalism. And like any religion, it needs a devil. And that devil has always been socialism. In 1961, Ronald Reagan said if we passed Medicare, we'd wind up telling our children what it once was like in America when men were free. Thanks, Nostra dumbass. Oh, we hate the red team. Republicans always think if you allow a little socialism, it'll spread out of control. But actually, it's the opposite. It's capitalism that we've let spread out of control.
And this is a decade ago that he's talking like this. Do you think it's gotten any better since then? No, it's gotten a lot worse. And yet somehow Billy got a lot worse along with it. Ever since he's put on those glasses, that's when I believe he really turned for the worse. That was it. That was the moment. Put those stupid glasses on, thought it made him look smarter. It ended up affecting his brain and making him dumber. The way he's talking right now, it's understandable why he used to be a popular commentator when it came to left populism. This is a guy who said, I want to help your campaign. I want to see you get the nomination. I want to see you be the next president. To Bernie Sanders in the spring of 2015. Now, again, at the time, it sounded nice, but then it got real. Then Bernie had a chance to win. And then Bill got the talking to. And then he changed his mind. And slowly but surely, he started making it seem like, Jen, stop messing with my production, please. He made it seem like this was somehow going to get better. It was going to get better. That's what he was going to, again, if you just compare side by side the language here versus the way he is today, you would never hear him say anything even possibly positive regarding Bernie Sanders. In fact, what he was doing in the latter stages of the primary election was softening the blow with his audience by telling them that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are only about 4% different. Yeah, and even if that were true, the 4% is a big fucking 4%. That's the part he doesn't mention. So, that said, he has a little bit more to say.
It's eaten our democracy. It's eating our middle class. It's eaten our healthcare system, our prison system, our news media. It's even eaten our food system so thoroughly that a lot of our food is no longer something that should be eaten. Because capitalism is a shark, or a tidal wave, or pond scum, or whatever metaphor you like to describe an unthinking force that devours everything in its path. And now the latest thing it is scarfing down is our national parks. The government just announced they would be selling naming rights at the parks like we do at sports stadiums, because the parks are $11 billion in debt. And since capitalism solves everything, cue corporate America, who's always asking one simple question: how can we help?
You know, the funny thing about Billy Boy is that he actually used to be funny. There was a time where he had his moments. Obviously, it's changed. But as I said, I used to watch him on the regular. And there's a reason for that. And the truth is, I think there's also a part of him that tried to become a podcaster, and it didn't work in the way that he would have wanted. But then again, he's on the corporate algorithm, so that helps him a great deal. And again, he speaks a completely different language. Could you imagine if he was trying this language and was doing a podcast? He'd probably be shadow banned like we are. But times change in a big way. As I said, this Bill Maher from a decade ago, he wouldn't know this Bill Maher that's talking now. He'd probably hate him. But perhaps Bill got a talking to over time, where he was trying to maintain that left populism narrative that had worked so well to building up Bernie Sanders. But then the system started to shake at its foundation, and the powers that be said, stop talking about it, or it's your ass. And he listened. We'll finish it up.
Nothing in it for us. We just want to lend a hand. Like when Bill Cosby offers to help you with your modeling career. So get ready to see the bison roaming at Yellowstone with the Nike swoosh shaved into their ass. And you'll no longer be having anonymous gay sex in Yosemite's rest area number 12. You'll be getting blown in the Quicken Loans men's room. The Grand Tetons will be brought to you by Hooters and the Washington Monument by Cialis. And the Statue of Liberty by Massengill. Give me you're tired, you're hungry, you're feeling not so fresh. You know, when you're handing over national parks to corporations, when the price of a life-saving drug goes up 5,000% overnight, when our elections are being bought by the evil puppet from the Saw movies.
You think Bill Maher has said one thing about his widow that gave Trump $100 million? No, nothing. But the Bill Maher then, oh, he would have said it. He did say it. And what's even more amazing about this particular clip is that Bill understood what was going on in the country at that time and what is still going on. And, you know, I see AD with the 7,000 a laugh. Yeah, today it is. But when he's making this commentary here, that's real laughter. People are really enjoying this. I'm enjoying it. And that, and in many ways, is the difference between then and now. It's clear. We see it all the time. We see all different types of media personalities shift when they have an opportunity to take the next step, or when somebody makes them an offer they can't refuse.
It's time to realize we're better off if there are a few things that free market profiteers can't get their cloven hooves on. On the same day I read about the $11 billion the parks need, there was also this headline: $40 billion Air Force tanker program delayed. Because that's the problem with the Grand Canyon. It doesn't make Boeing rich. It just sits there, stupid canyon. I'm not arguing against the free market, just not for everything. It's funny, older people think socialism is capitalism's enemy, and younger people think it's capitalism's replacement, but they're both wrong. What socialism is capitalism's lap band, something to prevent it from eating everything.
Amazing. Amazing. What happened to that guy? One must wonder what happened to that Bill Maher, because he's not good. He's certainly not that guy anymore. And that's why I bring it up, because when I saw that clip last night and I heard what he was saying, the only thing I could think of was he didn't always talk like that. And I had to prove it to everybody that no, Bill Maher actually at one time had good social commentary. Those days, they're gone. Way gone. But it's a reflection of how much the system has changed for the worse. Things were really bad back in 2015, 2016. I would imagine that just about everybody would yearn for the days of 2015 and 2016 today if they could have it. But then again, if we're living in the world today that we're living in, we wouldn't be as well informed about what's really going on. We would be in the dark about a lot of things, including the state of Israel. That is a huge part of this. And I say it not because I think we're better off where we are today. We're not. However, we are much better off knowing what we know now, but now we have to change it for good. The system must change. And yes, Sandler, I dislike Israel just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Not too much. Just a little bit. And I bring this up because I would imagine that there is a decent amount of people here in this chat that watch our channel, that are of a certain age and makeup, that one way or another have an opinion about Adam Sandler. Whether you like him or not, I personally really only liked Billy Madison was okay, but it was Happy Gilmore that was really the slapstick comedy film that I enjoyed. And it wasn't even so much about the fact that I liked Adam Sandler as the lead actor. In fact, I don't think he is a lead actor in any way. I think he's maybe in some respects, much as it was in his heyday at the height of what was considered the best years, or at least some of the best years in the history of SNL, was a side player along with Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Tim Meadows, Julius Sweeney, David Spade. Those days when he could be Mr. Liberace, that was fun and funny. Then he got a little drunk with money and power, and he went to the moon in terms of his success. And then he was just churning out silly movie, more silly movie, shitty movie, really shitty movie, super shitty movie, and downright detestable movie. But there's a little secret that got, we'll just say, unnoticed over the years. Yes, he is a very big supporter of the state of Israel. Yes, he has been stone silent on the Palestinian genocide. In addition, one has to ask themselves, for an actor and producer, he has his own production company, Happy Madison Productions. You have to ask yourself, for somebody with rare exceptions, The Wedding Singer had decent reviews. I believe Punch Drunk Love did okay. But for the most part, his movies were not heralded. They were very, let's just say, cheap in terms of effort. It's an excuse to get friends and family together, make a few bucks. And you have to ask yourselves, when it seems like anybody else would be doing the exact same thing, that they would be ruined. There is no way. Sandler's not that talented. Uncut Gems was a good movie, but that's a once in a career shot. And well, Joe Anthony mentioned Uncut Gems just now. Yeah. And what's even more incredible is that it never really dawned on me that, well, maybe Sandler has been protected all of these years. Maybe there's something more to it than what meets the eye. Because again, it's not like he made one bad film. It's not like he made a few bad films. He made probably a dozen or more bad films. And yet, he kept getting the money to produce these movies. And no one ever thought to ask why. If you go back and look at the reviews of these films, they are absolutely abysmal. Rotten Tomatoes ratings in the 20s. Like universally rejected. And let's not even forget about You Don't Mess with a Zohran. Is that You Don't Mess with a Zohan? Is that what? Yeah, whatever. Point is, I never saw it. I can't tell you I would say the last movie that I remember seeing in the movie theater that was an Adam Sandler movie was probably The Waterboy. I think that was the last one. After that, I saw where this was going, and I was not going to be party to it. And when he released that movie, Mr. Deeds, of which I did not watch, I only asked myself, okay, can it get worse than this? Yeah, it could. A lot worse. So I mention this because it turns out that Adam Sandler is not just a very proud supporter of the state of Israel, which answers a lot of questions. There's also something about his wife. It's amazing what's going on with these spouses that people have and the connections that they have to the state of Israel, isn't it? Well, may I present you with a clip that will give you even better insight as to why Adam Sandler has gotten away with cinema murder for so many years.
Sandler is married to Jackie Titone. She appears in a lot of his movies. We all pretty much know her. But did you know her dad, Joey Titone? A Florida lawyer who defended John Luke Brunel, an associate of Epstein, in 2015. Brunel had been involved in many scandals starting in the 90s before this, particularly because he ran a modeling agency that was involved in the sex trafficking. He even flew 3 12-year-old girls from France to the U.S. as a birthday gift for Epstein.
Wow, that's amazing. I can only imagine why they would not want these emails or the files to ever be released. It really goes to show you that it's not just about me sucking old Slick Willie off. Well, listen, it was really good, and I felt it all the way down from my head to my toes. Let me tell you something. Well, I know I do the best one ever. Totally. This is exactly why I said Hillary can't satisfy you like I can. I didn't say I can, but trust me when I tell you that's what really happened. All jokes aside, you really have to ask yourself, how in the hell does all of this happen? There is a reason that they do not want any of this coming out. They don't want it coming out, and it isn't because everybody's a pederast. It's because, as Whitney Webb has said for so very, very long, and I will continue to say it until I'm blue in the face, we are one nation under blackmail. That's what we are. Johnny, if I looked like you, I would hate the world too. I do need help. That's why I do this podcast. It's fun. I get to express all of my inner feelings that I can't express to anybody else. So I get them out here live. And I appreciate you being here. I really do. I don't care if you're a hater. I'm just glad you're here. Believe me when I Totally believe me when I tell you. Listen, Johnny, you look like the type of guy that totally supports me, so I'm going to tell you once and for all, I may not break bread with you, but I would most appreciate your vote and your money because I really like my people, my tremendous people. You're a really great guy, really great person. With that said, does this surprise anybody? Well, thank you for letting me know. Good. I've been thinking about getting myself a Glock or a Beretta, just to protect myself. I probably should. And we all know that there are people that are watching me right now, including ones that would like to send the police after me and accuse me of doing something really bad. So it doesn't surprise me. By the way, if you haven't seen the wonderful clip about what's going on with the Israelis in Thailand, go check that one out. I hope you'll have a great time with it. It should not surprise anybody that Adam Sandler has had the career that he has had when it doesn't make any sense at all that he should be this successful. Again, a dud here and there, fine. His whole career is a dud with rare exceptions. When he does a good film, it's like, holy shit, Adam Sandler made a good movie. Well, now we're understanding why this is happening. Now we're seeing it. I'm not saying that this lady, Jackie Tatone, that Sandler's been married to for over 20 years, is Mossad or her father's Mossad. But you really got to wonder how, in the name of all that is holy, as Jen likes to say, is Adam Sandler's wife's father directly connected to Jeffrey Epstein? And yet, no one can ever answer why Sandler has had the career that he's had. How does he keep getting that money? Despite all the signs that would say, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Well, now you know. And he's got more to say. So, we don't need to play coy and assume Joe didn't know, because that happened years prior. Brunel was one of many suppliers. Virginia Jeffrey, a victim, came forward and said that Epstein bragged about sleeping with over 1,000 of Brunel's girls. After Epstein's death, Brunel went into hiding because he knew he'd probably be next. So police started investigating Brunel and arrested him on charges of human trafficking, criminal conspiracy, and sexual assault, all involving minors. While awaiting trial, he was found hanging in his prison cell, just like Epstein. Now, a friend of both Brunel and Epstein in this same modeling world was Paolo Zampoli. He was actually Melania Knauss's modeling agent. He filed her H-1B visa paperwork. He even said that she wasn't working for money in the U.S. prior to receiving the visa because that's illegal. It's not just one nation under blackmail. What it actually is also one nation to the highest bidder. So you could get your H-1B visa. You just got to pay for it. Which is also why it isn't so much about we only want the white countries coming to America. No. What they want, the powers that be, is they want people to come to this country that are going to do one of two things. Bring money and spend it here. Or two, work their ass off for little to no money. And if you do not fall into one of those two categories, you are not welcome here ever. Why? Because we have a broken system. So this should come as no surprise to anybody. Melania is part of the H-1B visa program. Ooh, that's going to be a good segue into the next topic, but this mystery lady has a little bit more to say.
But that was a lie, because she actually had been paid over $20,000 for 10 different modeling gigs in America prior to obtaining her visa, which is immigration fraud. Paolo Zampoli, her accomplice, is the one who introduced her to her husband, Donald Trump. Back to Jackie, she started modeling in late high school in Florida, and no matter how hard I look, I can't find her modeling agency.
It sounds to me like Jackie Tatone was maybe a honeypot situation for Mr. Sandler. She appeared as a extra with one or two speaking parts in Big Daddy, all the way back in, I guess Big Daddy was 1999, I believe. And then they got married a few years later. There are no coincidences, not in this world. So as I said, are there any surprises here? Does any of this surprise anybody? That we are living in a country that is going to do everything in its power to try to protect the exposure of this very broken, non-meritocratic system, because it isn't. For some people it is, but for the most part, it's one nation under the dollar and justice for no one. That's it. So when one wonders, you look at the not so appealing movies and shows and things that come out from time to time, and some are justified for sure. But for whatever reason, there are those who seem to make it to the top. And you often have to wonder how that is the case when it is clear that the person in question doesn't really have that much to offer. I never regarded Ben Affleck as a good actor, and he isn't. But he's a really good director, and he's probably a pretty good producer as well. He has talent. Maybe not the talent that I generally like in terms of a leading actor. He's just not my cup of tea. But I can respect his talent because he does have it. Adam Sandler doesn't have any talent. It's very, very limited. In fact, he's often the product of those around him that make him look better. Chris McDonald, in particular, in Happy Gilmore. Eric Bogosian, among others, in Uncut Gems. That's how he's been able to do this for so long, aside from the obvious protection racket that he has been privileged to have on the part of Israel overall, maybe Epstein, who knows? But it should not come as any surprise to anybody that everyone is stone silent at the very top when it is clear that they're just a paper tiger. And Adam Sandler is one big fucking paper tiger. With that said, the H-1B visa program is a very interesting topic, to say the least. Now, obviously, everyone is paying attention to the political trajectory of this moment of Marjorie Taylor Greene. As Jen and I have said repeatedly, I don't trust her, but I respect her game. She plays it well. She got the View ladies to cackle like seals in her approval. Wonderful. Put your money where your mouth is. What actions are you going to put forward? Well, it turns out that Marjorie, unlike somebody else in politics, wink, wink, actually drafted legislation and put it forward on the behalf of the working class of the United States of America.
Dear fellow Americans, I'm introducing a bill to completely eliminate the H-1B visa program, which has been riddled with fraud and abuse and has been displacing American workers for decades. There will only be one exemption in my bill, and it will allow for a $10,000 per year cap on visas issued to medical professionals like doctors and nurses who provide life-saving care to Americans. However, even this $10,000 per year cap will be phased out over 10 years to allow us time to build our own pipeline of American doctors and physicians. My bill will also restore the original intent of the visa, for it to be temporary. These visas were intended to fulfill a specialty occupational need at a given time, People should not be allowed to come and live here forever. We thank them for their expertise, but we also wish them well so they may return to their home country.
Now, when I was a teenager, had a few different jobs. One of them was in a bagel shop. And one of the gentlemen that was one of the bagel rollers was from Egypt. He was here on an H-1B visa. And he would take the money and send it home to his family in Cairo. He knew what he was here to do. He was here to make his money. And at the time, the exchange rate, maybe it still is pretty good. I'm not 100% sure. But this is what he ultimately ended up doing. There is waste, fraud, and abuse in any system. There is no question that right now, the biggest reason we are faced with this problem, with the H-1B visa crisis, which is attracting people from other parts of the world, most specifically India and then China. And what do they have in common that they don't have here in the States? Smash that like button, guys. We really appreciate it. We just got to 800 live viewers. We're not even 1 hour in. Let's get to 1,000 viewers before the night's out. Let's see those likes up. We need them. Appreciate you all. I advocate for a tuition-free public college and trade school system. Based on the amount that it would cost, it would be about 1%. That's right, 1% of the current budget that we have. That's it. Did you know that for every dollar we invest in education, in trades that the country is in need of, $7 goes back into the economy? The only reason that we do not have this type of program that is universal in other parts of the world is because when you bring in people from countries like India and China, you can hire them for a lot less money than you would if they were here in the United States. This, above all other reasons, is why Elon Musk is at the forefront of advocating for this program. Yes, the workers are more skilled than they are here, but that's on purpose. We do not want a highly educated and well-knowledgeable workforce, because then how the hell else are you going to convince the average person to do a career, not a part-time job for maybe a few years, but a career at Amazon or Walmart? When your opportunities are limited, this is how you get here. This is how we are here. It's pretty obvious. So Marjorie, I salute you. Oh, I love the uneducated and I love the unhealthy. It sounds like me, really. It really does. But Marjorie's doing good work. Got to give credit where credit's due. But again, even if it is for political opportunistic purposes, hats off. Because unlike other people with large platforms, her actions are speaking louder than her words.
My bill will take away the pathway to citizenship, forcing visa holders to return home when their visa expires. In order to build our pipeline of American doctors and medical professionals, my bill will also prohibit Medicare-funded residency programs from admitting non-citizen medical students into their programs. Just last year alone, there were over 9,000 doctors in the U.S. who graduated from medical school but were left without a residency placement. Meanwhile, in 2023 alone, there were over 5,000 foreign-born doctors who received residency spots. This is entirely unfair, and it's America last.
Now, I would ask somebody who hears this and says, and again, this goes to people that are very left politically, especially when it comes to social issues. I do not believe in open borders. And I do not believe in a world where there is no meritocracy. If there are people that are qualified for this work, then they should be able to learn that skill here in the United States. You know, going to medical school, much less going to pretty much any type of public college, with rare exception, it costs a lot of money. Now, don't you think if we were really America first, not America only, which we're seeing people throw out there now, shocker, but America first, do you not think that there are not tens of thousands of doctors lying in wait, nurses lying in wait, that would love to have this as their career if only we had a country that wanted to pay them to learn it because it would be to our advantage? This is just common sense. And of course, it takes a conservative from deep South red Georgia to put this out there. What the fuck has been going on for the past decade that there has not been a rallying cry from the likes of, I'm not going to say her name, but you would think that something as simple as this would be at the forefront of any left populist political movement. Ro Khanna will adopt this, I guarantee it. He will 1000% adopt this because he's running for president and he's a smart guy. And so with that being said, do I think that this bill has legs? Not at the moment, because she is now public enemy number one to the Donald. And that's going to be a problem in the short term. In the long run, she and Massey will win. But Trump is going all in now to not only stop Massey, but to stop her too.
My bill will help mitigate the shortage of doctors and nurses in our country, the shortage that we face, while at the same time serve as an off-ramp from our reliance on foreign workers by allowing us time to fill our residency programs with American doctors. Now, this will completely end the H-1B visa program in all other sectors in the job force and in the workforce. This is America first. It's time to put American citizens first instead of foreigners first. And this has gone on, and this has been an abuse for far too long. Americans deserve a future, they deserve a chance, and I believe Americans are the most talented people in the world, the most creative, and I want them to have their American dream. Thank you.
She's good. There's no question she's good. And a lady is right. We do need to strengthen our education system overall. But remember, the reason why our education system today is nowhere near the standards that the rest of the world is at is because it's been a deliberate reduction in quality for decades, because multinational corporations need people to work like animals in their factories, if you will. And by not having much of an education, your prospects are limited. There is a reason why arithmetic, home ec, electronics, basic knowledge that one would think they would need to have. That doesn't exist. It exists at certain private schools. It exists in certain charter schools. But I guarantee you, if you went into the public education system today in most places, and this is not to say that this is all about multinational corporations, because it isn't. We have a huge problem with I'm a huge advocate for labor, but I know a shitty union when I see one, and the teachers union sucks. And the person at the top, Randy Weingarten, who loves Debbie Wasserman Schultz for all she's worth, does not give a fuck about education or the students that these teachers are teaching. It is about the careers, very long careers, if you will, of teachers. And yes, teachers go through hell, no two ways about it. But they are asked to do more than they're capable of in many cases. And so to say that this is a systemic problem is an understatement. It takes somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's got a lot of moxie and a lot of courage, to step up and say, this is what the United States of America needs. And she's right. We do need this. So kudos to Margie. I think what she's doing is right. And we'll see if she gets any traction. I would be very surprised if she does. Like I said, under normal circumstances, I think this bill would do exceptionally well. But the reason it's not going to do too much right now is because the president doesn't like her very much anymore. She's totally insane, really crazy. No, what she's doing is working on behalf of the American people, and you're working against the American people, Donnie boy. We don't need that. We do need America first right now. And that is a revolutionary concept because it is going to require revolutionary change to have a country in which its citizens are actually valued. That's the big shift that's coming. Politics makes strange bedfellows. But I'm going to play this last clip regarding the numbers with H-1B visas. And this is from Fox Business. So buckle up. This is interesting.
100,000 H-1B visa holders in America. Now, who is coming to this country to take these high-skilled jobs? As I mentioned, STEM fields dominate the occupations. And most of the workers come from India. In fact, 70% of H-1B visa holders come from India. Another 10 to 15% come from China. 80% of H-1B visa approvals are for entry-level or junior-level jobs. That's a little hard to stomach when we hear that we're not talented enough or that we're not skilled enough for these jobs when you consider that most of these jobs are actually at entry or junior-level jobs. And it's definitely to the benefit of corporations, tech companies that can hire foreign workers, trust me on this, cheaper than American workers. This is laid out, by the way, by billionaire tech entrepreneur Palmer Luckey.
There's so much H-1B abuse. You would not believe what I saw when I was in Silicon Valley. It is insane. It's obviously a program to try and replace U.S. workers with basically slave labor that can't ever escape. The H-1B abuse is crazy.
And that is the nature of capitalism. Pay the least amount for the most return on your investment. That covers everything. Nothing is off limits. Nothing. In this case, we are finally waking up to that reality. And not a moment too soon, I might add. We are living in hell. But the good news is that most people now recognize that we're living in hell. So how do we get past it now is going to be the real question. So we'll see. If you want America first, it requires revolutionary change. If you're enjoying this conversation so far, please make sure you get over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We do have some super chats to get to this evening. Want to give a big shout out to our favorite Jim Talib, always with the $5 super sticker. Appreciate you being here, brother. A $22, I think that's a euro. I'm pretty sure that's a euro. Anybody want to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a euro. Pasadena World Empress, thank you very much. I love you, Peter Hager and Jen. Please talk about the Epstein emails and Trump sucking off Bubba. Trump is losing his mind. Yes, he is. And if you have been listening, I did do a little comedy bit in this last segment. We'll talk about it more on Monday. But like I said, it shouldn't surprise anybody that this type of behavior has become all too common when it comes to people at the very top. They're just bored and they do really weird, perverted, and illegal shit. When you start hurting people like children, now we must do something about it as quickly as possible. JG with the $5. I believe most media people are CIA. Operation Mockingbird, absolutely. Bill is there so people will hate leftists. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Jackie, thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate your support. Oh, Saeed, with Modi and that adorable chubby cheeks. Thank you very much for gifting 50 more Revolutionary Change memberships. Get them while they're hot, guys, because right now, Saeed has been exceptionally generous, and we cannot thank him enough. JG with the $5 again. Vince Foster, Bubba's rival, was talked about in email leaks. Vince and Hillary. Now we know why Hillary forgave Bubba so easily. Hey, listen, they're all running around on each other. There's no loyalty. You think Melania doesn't have something on the side? Trump has been a complete disaster physically for many years. Melania still looks like a smoke show. You think she doesn't have a boyfriend or two? I hope she does. You didn't sign up to be a complete spider on the wall. I'd be surprised if Trump actually can make it work, even with the strongest potent forms of Viagra. But who knows? Anything's possible. And a lady with the $5. Thank you very much. You're doing good work here. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate your support and appreciate you being here. And of course, as I said, for anybody who is here, who is thinking about supporting our channel, we are, let me give a count, got to give you guys an update in terms of where we're at right now. We are at 85, give me 1 second. We were at 85,755 subscribers. We are now at 85,844 subscribers. So we are moving up that ladder. We've got a really good clip rolling right now about Thailand finally stepping up with its own people to ban Israelis. Lord knows it was time to move forward with that. I mean, come on now. This is the the world never moves as fast as we would like it to. I wish it would. But we all know that in the current predicament that we're living in today, it takes time. It's taken a lot longer than we would want. And it does make me sad. Because Lord knows we're looking around and have been for the past 2 years wondering if there was anyone that was listening that could hear those children's cries like Hin Rajab. And for so many, they weren't heard. And so when I hear people saying that, oh, well, we just cannot break bread with others, that we insist upon not having the type of cordial relationships with other people that we must have if we're ever going to break free of this hellscape that we're living in right now, because that is what we're dealing with. This entire evolution, if you will, has made interesting bedfellows. And while I watch little Ben Shapiro make statements like, you're not entitled to live where you were born when you grow up, this is a person who has benefited mightily from the Zionist capitalist death spiral that our system is in right now. So naturally, he's going to make commentary that is not to the benefit of the average person. But there's a lot of commentators out there right now that are doing the work that is necessary for us to form the alliances that we could ultimately band together and have the impact that we need to have to ultimately end this unholy alliance with the genocidal state of Israel. A very good compilation clip from Breezy Politics for you to enjoy.
Left, you are not my enemy.
It is with pride that we announced our next guest. Thank you, Cenk, for coming on.
No problem, Tucker. Thanks for having me on. I think it's important that we have a moment like this where we try to bring the country together.
Amen. I so strongly agree.
Wake up. Because I am telling you, this is not a battle between left and right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Thank you.
How about that? You know, it's funny. The system is breaking. We know that. But I tell you, it would be a very interesting frenemy rivalry in the political arena if both Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene are running for president in 2028. At least there would be some semblance of bipartisanship on certain ideas, not this, whatever they're for, I'm against, whatever you're for, or whatever you're against, I'm for. I would hope that that is not the future, or I would hope that the future we're heading towards is one where we can have more conversation about key topics that matter to most people. But we're not there yet. We're trying to get there. And so right off the bat, it is clear to me why this is such a big deal. And I agree with Saeed. Israel feeds the division. If that was not in the way, I'm not saying there wouldn't be other problems. There would, because the system is broken. But there would be less of an impediment to try to bring about that revolutionary change that we need.
We have to now meet in the middle.
Do you think that America should just cut ties with Israel altogether?
What's your definition of cut ties?
Like stop funding them, stop being their military arm?
Yes,
okay,
I'm on record saying.
Okay.
What you're doing here is so important, Congresswoman Greene, so please thank you, because I know that you now have a target on your back, and I'm sure you're being called all sorts of ridiculous names because you want to, prioritize the American people.
AIPAC needs to register under FARA. I've openly demanded that.
If Marjorie does not have round-the-clock some form of security, now I know that Marjorie is packing. That I know for a fact. If there is one congressperson that I know besides, was it Mark Wayne Mullen, the, shit kicker from Oklahoma with the cowboy hat on every time he shows up on Capitol Hill, Marjorie is definitely somebody who protects herself. Well, if you're trying to get Israel to register as a foreign agent, you better believe that you have a big fat target on your back when you have that level of a platform. No question about it. I commended Anna Kasparian for apologizing to Aaron Mate for calling him a foreign agent, saying I was wrong. I should never have done that. Credit where credit's due. What's interesting is that if you look at the top of the comment under Ben Shapiro, said, I finally got why you're so successful at what you do. It's because you spend all your time making sure us common folk hate each other. It's true, which is why I said this past week, the thing about Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro in particular, they can't reinvent themselves. So once this is over, it is over. Their entire empire is collapsing, as it should. And if they thought getting rid of Charlie Kirk was a smart move, that was somehow going to help them in the grand scheme of things, hey, I always said I wished, I'm not going to say his name one more time. I only wished that Jen had enough capital to go after Wasserman Schultz, because in the end, I always believed that she could be a viable candidate against her, because all of these Zionazis, just let them hang themselves. That's what they're going to do. They're going to hang themselves. Just let them talk. Ben Shapiro doesn't want to debate Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes. Hell, he wouldn't even debate me, because I'd wipe the floor with his bony ass.
Oh, yeah, I'll teach you.
You get the idea.
And if we had a Department of Justice that was doing its job, they would be investigating AIPAC. But I think the American people see through it, and the tide is rapidly changing. And I tell you, one of the most delightful experiences I've had since I've been in Washington is that I'm finding common ground with people on the left and the right that really want to focus in on America. And I think that's the best thing that can happen. And that's why I'm delighted to have conversations with the two of you. And I look forward to finding more common ground because I think that could be the best thing that could happen for all of us.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, we appreciate you coming on the Young Turks.
Thank you.
I just want to say this about Congressman Massey, and I hope I don't hurt him more in his district by saying nice things. But wherever you are on his ideology, he's a profile in courage.
You can say that again. There's one thing you could say about Massey more than anything else. He is the most courageous representative in the entire country. The Donald, in coordination with Miriam Adelson and a whole bunch of Zionist billionaires, are putting $20 million behind Massey's primary opponent. That's going to be a very important race. So we'll see.
I mean, he's got billions of dollars being spent against him. He's got billions of dollars because people don't want the Epstein release. He's got billions of dollars because AIPAC has been attacking him.
Wake up. I've always said we can't save the Palestinian people as much as I want to. But I worry that we can't. But what we can do is figure out a way to bury this genocidal state forever. Their ideology, their stranglehold over our political and economic system. And I do believe that change can happen. We just have to be willing to put certain differences aside. Now, not everybody obviously is in it for the right reasons. I think everyone knows that. And always be suspicious of the intentions of any politician. But remember, Thomas Jefferson always said that the difference between tyranny and liberty is very simple. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears its people, there is liberty. Viva la liberté, as they say in France. The government fears their people in France. That's why they have their yellow vests. That's why they have, for all intents and purposes, based on almost every metric in the world, France has the best healthcare system. What do we have? We have shit. We appreciate you being here, PH Joy, and I like that profile picture. I catch a lot of shit for liking the red, white, and blue, but remember, the flag means what you want it to mean. It means one thing to the powers that be. It means another thing to the average person. And I want us to be able to put those differences aside. We must put them aside. And I say this because while not everybody here supports Zohran Mamdani or Tucker Carlson, there is an organization, and we've pointed out that AIPAC is not the only one. There are a lot of these NGOs, if you will, these highly funded groups, and there's many different ones, but the Zionists of America, I believe is how you say it. I'm going to double check this just to be sure. So what the group is called, it's the Zionist Organization of America. And the leader of this group is Mort Klein. Now, you heard what the rabbi, Zionist neoliberal rabbi, on the Upper West Side had to say. Well, the Zionist Organization of America held their annual gala. And at this annual gala, shitbag of a congressperson, Elise Zionazi Stefanik, announced her bid for the governorship of the state of New York. And as the leader of the dignitaries, Mr. Klein had a few pointed statements that he felt he needed to make.
Like most Jewish groups, we the ZOA, we push back against the lies and the hatred, as we always have, by going on TV, radio, op-eds, speeches on campuses, Capitol Hill, in the courts.
Now, I don't know for certain if this guy is related to Woody Allen or is copying Woody Allen's mannerisms or is copying Woody Allen's expressions and diction. But if you shut your eyes, lowered your ears, you might just think Woody Allen is the man on stage speaking right now. Was I wrong? Yeah, maybe. But that's what I'm getting from this.
We do everything we can. Lately, we have fought against the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation has embraced Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson used to condemn Pat Buchanan for being an anti-Semite. Do you know that?
Pat Buchanan, many, many years ago, said, and I quote, that Israel controls Capitol Hill. This was back in the 1980s. Was he wrong? Clearly not. In fact, Pat Buchanan was so sure that this country was going down the wrong path that he primaried President Bush in 1992. And an America First agenda was what he was running on. Now, the country was not ready for that at the time. But this man, this Mort Klein, oh boy. You thought that the rabbi on the Upper West Side is dangerous? This guy's even worse.
You used to condemn him. Now Tucker Carlson says that Christian supporters of Israel have a brain virus and they're committing heresy against Christianity. He said, I dislike them more than anyone. He accuses Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, thank you, Secretary of State Rubio, Hegseth. He's accusing them of a brain virus and being heretical to Christianity. It's nonsense.
You know, the amazing thing, and I've said this before, this is why I think Christian Zionism is in a lot more trouble than Jewish Zionism, because Jewish Zionism, in many ways, is based on money and power. Christian Zionism is based on radical beliefs. Hence why they are told in the evangelical church that if you do not support the state of Israel, you will burn in hell. That's pretty radical, if you ask me. Now, what's interesting, and Jen has pointed this out a time or two, is that most Jewish Zionists, they don't even go to synagogue. They're not religious types at all. And so it should not come as any surprise that the reaction from the Jewish Zionists, who rely heavily on the Christian Zionists to maintain their support at the ballot box for the GOP, particularly in the South and in the heartland. That's changing. So this guy doesn't know what the hell to do, because he sure as hell can't do the dirty work. He can cut a check, but that's about all he can do. And it seems to me that cutting checks is just not working for them like it used to.
Accuses Americans who fought to support America destroying nukes in Iran as warmongers. And he condemns those, and he says those who fought against destroying the nukes, he calls them peacemakers. But not only does he make terrible statements against Jews himself, he brings on a half a dozen of the most vicious, maniacal, crackpot anti-Semites the world knows. These people deny the Holocaust. They praise Hitler as being cool and awesome. They praise Stalin. They attack Charlie Kirk for being pro-Israel. And unlike when he interviewed Ted Cruz, who was very pro-Israel, he attacked Cruz, condemned Cruz, debated Cruz. When these people made these outrageous statements, he suddenly was silent.
I mean, honestly, I think this guy's going to tip over and pass out. He doesn't like Israel! That's the only thing I can think of.
He either nodded in approval or said nothing, acting as if the people are making valid points, which of course they're just a bunch of crackpot Jew haters. And Kevin Roberts of Heritage called people who criticize Tucker Carlson as venomous people who have another people's agenda. He accused Jews of dual loyalty, another people's agenda, Israel's agenda.
You gotta love the use of language, ladies and gentlemen. You got to appreciate the use of language. It's not the Zionists. It's not the Israelis. It's the Jews. It's the Jews who have dual loyalty. Damn it. Our whole shenanigans are going up in flames. My word. What are we going to do with these guys, ladies and gentlemen? What are we going to do with these people? I don't know. I kind of just want to see them kvetch for the rest of their life because that's what they're best at. This guy has all the money and power in the world, and yet I don't know if he is the champion of kvetching and that's how he's made his money. No, Patrick, he does not. Don't you ever insult Mr. Pesci like that. This guy sounds like Woody Allen. Does anyone want to challenge me on this? This is not Joe Pesci. Whatever. He's Woody Allen.
It's total rubbish. We went to war against him. Op-eds, TV, radio. We said you must retract, apologize, and condemn Tucker. You must end relations of Tucker, or you must resign yourself. Because of ZOA and others, the Esther anti-Semitism program at the Heritage Foundation has now severed all relations with Heritage. They're gone.
Yeah, well, as if that doesn't reaffirm the old Jewish stereotype of we control the media and the money and the power. So the Heritage Foundation, of which I don't give a fuck about, could care less if they fall apart. But even if they did, it won't matter because another NGO is going to pop up and they're going to do the exact same thing. But he's proving in real time that they're like, how dare they accuse us of doing the things that we always do? That's what happened. You think he's done? Oh, no, he's got a little bit more.
And there's an increased effort to ultimately dismiss this man as well.
You know, I really don't know if he's joking or if he's really got a hairball caught in his throat. Maybe he does. I can't help him. You can Chris my ass too, baby. Trust me when I tell you. Chris my ass. Free Palestine. But this whiny little bitch isn't done yet. He's got a little bit more to say. Now he's going to lay on the bigotry just a little thicker.
Because of open borders, the number of Muslims in New York has gone from 10 years ago, 100,000 Muslims, to 1 million. Yes, the demographics have changed. The people of America has not changed so much, but the demographics have changed. That's what happened. And also large numbers of conservative right-of-center people have left New York, moved to Florida and elsewhere.
This is like a comedy routine. I swear to God, it's like somebody gave him a script and said, just every trope, every stereotype you can think of, throw it out there. Let it stick to the wall. Jews are big, or Zionists. Again, this is the problem with equating Jews and Zionist Jews together. The point is, Zionists are bigots, obviously. Zionists are rich and powerful, obviously. Zionists are whiny little bitches, obviously.
you had a totally different demographic. That explains one of the reasons this vicious, communist, racist, Jew-hating, Israel-bashing monster was elected. And
I mean, like I said, let's hear that one more time.
Racist, Jew-hating, Israel-bashing monster was elected.
You know, if I didn't know any better, I would think he would want to call Zohran a bastard instead of calling him a monster or a towel head or a sand knit. Well, you know the rest. Trust me, he may be saying this at a lectern, but in private, you can't even imagine the type of language that he would probably be throwing out there. When they're amongst their own and only their own and in close quarters, boy, oh boy. And all that money and all that bitching that you and Bill Ackman and everyone else did to try to stop him didn't work. And it's never going to work again. The precedent has been set, and the change is inevitable. How fast it comes, we'll see. But your kind and your control, it's on the way out. Everyone knows it now. So cry more.
And what's frightening, though, there's a huge danger that Jew hatred and Israel bashing has become a badge of conscience and enlightenment. There's been a moralization and legitimization and mainstreaming of bigotry against Jews. Bigotry is disguised as principle. Hatred is baptized as virtue. Hostility to Israel now indicates decency and high morals. We at the ZOA will fight these dangerous and monstrous lies with all of our hearts and souls. No appeasement, no conciliation, only a war against this racist hatred of the Jewish people.
And what do you mean by war, Mr. Mort Klein? What type of a war do you mean? A war that you're going to participate in? Or you're going to pay people to participate in? Lord knows you've been starting every war probably since you're alive. That man was alive in 1967. You think he was happy with the USS Liberty being attacked? Probably. Here's what I know. This is what I know about people like this guy. This person does not represent Jewish people. He represents the affluent Zionist Israel class, of which there are a lot of Jews. And I say this to everyone. When you say that this is a Jew problem, the only people that benefit from that sentiment is people like him. He wants you to say that this is a Jew problem. This is why he talks the way he does. He is everything that is anti-American. I could go down a laundry list of reasons, but their way of thinking and their way of doing business is dying. And they know it. Zohran Mamdani. Keep it. Keep doing it. Who cares? Tucker Carlson. The most evil person alive. Tucker Carlson, most evil person alive. Keep spiraling. Keep doing it. Your demise can't come fast enough. There was another clip. This one, I'll tell you guys which it's from. This is from the World Jewish Congress. I'm saving that one from Monday with Jen. But again, while we know that this is changing, the dynamics of the system are changing, it's going to get more violent. There is going to be more false flags. Thank you, Mike. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that so much of what has transpired, and shout out to our friends over at Do Dissonance, they did a really good clip regarding former President George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, excuse me. I can't say anything good about W, but the first Bush, he had his moments. And one of those moments involved withholding $10 billion, this is in 1991, mind you, of funding to Israel. The IDF tried to assassinate him, and one of the IDF soldiers became a whistleblower. It's a long, drawn-out story, but it's a good one. And it is a belief that H.W. was involved in Kennedy's assassination. And as was pointed out, he said, there's a reason I only served one term. There's a reason that Ross Perot got in the race. And that involved the Waltons. Again, their boy, Slick Willie, ended up in the White House. But there is so much that we can't see. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes. And now we're getting just a little taste, as Bobby De Niro would say, a little taste of what really goes on. It's an ugly business. And in many cases, as we've seen in this system, this very broken system that is now kind of entering the world of the emperor has no clothes type of phase. And as a result, we have these gatekeepers that do not like other people getting involved in this media landscape. People are very protective of their territory. They don't like other people coming in and getting a share of their territory. But also, there is a belief that certain people get pumped up, pushed to the front, because it's good for ratings on the other side's part. And I'm talking, of course, about Nick Fuentes, but not about him specifically first. I'm talking about why is it that he's getting so much coverage? Well, there's lots of people with big platforms that are out there. But for whatever reason, I don't think I've ever, or Jen either, has ever mentioned Ezra Klein before on this podcast. Ezra Klein is another neoliberal Zionazi, but he's an intellectual and he's somebody who's held in such high regard at the New York Times. And of course, he decided that he had to put out a statement, a video statement regarding Fuentes, as if the intention isn't to draw more attention to him, that draws more attention to him. You get the idea.
If by the stroke of good fortune or just being a normal person, you had not heard of Nick Fuentes until this month.
What the fuck is it with people and mispronounce, especially these pseudo-intellectual shitbags? What is it with the mispronunciation of other people's names? Why do they feel the need to do that? I am very lucky to have the most white Anglo-Saxon name ever, Peter Grant Hager. It's really hard to fuck that one up. But when it's an ethnic name, like Fuentes, just like Mamdani, you think that's by accident? No, it's because a person like Ezra Klein does not see someone like Nick Fuentes on his level. And I'm not saying that he is. I am not here to defend Nick Fuentes at all. But I can call a spade a spade. It is pretty obvious what he's doing here. You'd have to be blind not to see it.
Chances are you've heard of him now.
Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable.
He's what I would call a racist. He's just this troll.
Nick Fuentes has said a long list of very vile things.
Big time.
He's a booger-eating, white supremacist Holocaust denier.
The reason everybody's talking about Fuentes is Tucker Carlson, who is arguably at this point the most significant media figure on the American right, hosted Fuentes, a person he has feuded with in the past, for a very friendly 2-hour chat.
I wanted to meet you. I've heard about you.
I've heard about you.
About the problem of Israel, about the problem of American Jews and whether or not they fit in this country or their loyalties are elsewhere.
If you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel.
I didn't realize that this was such a controversial statement, but probably one that really is pissing off the powers that be. And as I've said, this is the thing that's so interesting about ceding so much territory to this guy who has made extremely outlandish statements. But he's right on this big issue. And because very few people on the populist left are truly getting it right, no pun intended, when it comes to dealing with this issue, that is the state of Israel, and especially pushing back against their party, they can say that they're going to stand up to this movement. But you know what? It's kind of like we said earlier in the show this evening regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene puts her money where her mouth is and actually does action. Whereas other people in positions of similar power just bitch and moan and claim that they care deeply. But they won't actually do anything to change the fortunes of this country or those abroad, particularly in Gaza. And you wonder why the populist right is going to be just fine without the Donald leading the way. The America First Party, which is being formed as we speak, it'll be interesting to see who truly controls the reins of it going forward. But if people are not careful, somebody like Fuentes is going to lead it, and he is going to be very powerful. He's already got an ego the size of Trump's. Now imagine what'll happen if he takes real power. This is why we have to talk about this. But as I said, Nick's not wrong. And of course, Ezra's not going to say a word about it, is he?
It was the kind of conversation you would not have heard among mainstream figures on the American right in recent decades. What we are watching is a very old strain of the right vying for control of its future. This right goes back to Pat Buchanan. It goes back to Charles Lindbergh. The idea that the right should be an ethno-nationalist coalition.
Once again, making a false statement based on the fact that this is a desperate nation falling apart and people don't know what the hell to do, which is why strong men, bigots, if you will, even, get to the front of the line and preach a nationalistic message because people can't afford to live, Ezra. But no, you're not going to frame it that way, now are you? No, you're just going to say that it is all about the political right being racist and bigoted, and that's all they're good for. This is the divide and conquer strategy that Candace was talking about earlier, and forming those necessary alliances to avoid those pitfalls and to cede the real estate to those like Nick who might do harm. And a person like Ezra, he is hoping against all hope that that's what happens. Why? Because in his mind, it's good for his career. You see, as we said regarding Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, they can't reinvent themselves. Incapable. Ezra Klein is in a similar spot. Who the hell wants to listen to him other than rich, uber, pro-war, bigoted in many cases themselves, intellectuals in super liberal cities like New York and Washington, D.C. That's who he caters to. But again, it's a dying industry. So he's hoping that this works. I don't think it's going to work. In fact, the only thing it's going to do is give more power to Fuentes, which he may say is the complete opposite intention of what he's trying to do, but I'm not buying it, and neither should anybody else.
Which doesn't have room for immigrants, very much does not have room maybe for Jews, that is really not comfortable with anyone who's not what they call a heritage American.
We do need to be Christian. We do, on some level, need to be pro-white. Not to the exclusion of everybody else, but recognizing that white people have a special heritage here.
Now, the one thing I will say about Nick's commentary regarding this pro-white message that he's pushing, I want to be very clear when it comes to why this message is landing as well as it's landing. I have paid very close attention for the past decade to the anti-white, if you will, messaging that does come from the furthest corners of the overwoke left in politics. Now, in the grand scheme of things, how much do they actually make up of the political messaging? The DSA people. We've seen the clips of the DSA conventions where the people complain about the noise being too loud and ceding certain amounts of real estate, if you will, politically to people who are not white because that's what needs to happen. I remember the comic book of Superman being gay. Again, shock treatment is essentially what they're going for. But to say that this is a problem because people happen to be white is a poor excuse for saying that the system is broken. And yes, a lot more white people benefit from it than any other creed or culture. That's a fact. However, if you still don't think that the system itself is controlled by a small concentration of people, I don't know what you're looking at. But that is why Fuentes' message is landing. When people get desperate and then they're being told that this is the reason why it's their fault, it's inevitable. It's not hard to see why. We just have to be objective about all of this. It doesn't make him right, but you have to be able to see it for what it is and why it's happening. Don't ignore it, or you will be sorry. He's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more powerful. And the second Trump is no longer in control, watch out.
As Americans,
this has been a logic and an ideology that Trump has broken into the mainstream.
That's what we're all about, America first.
And that is now following itself to its full expression. If you buy into this, well, it has a place it goes. And now we are seeing more figures on the American right truly going there.
Why aren't people listening to you, Ezra Klein? Why are people not listening to your message? If Nick Fuentes is so evil and so wrong about everything, then why aren't they flocking to you? Why is that? Could it be because you're an elitist prick? Could it be because you're a Zionazi? Could it be because you're an overeducated shit lib in a bougie, democratic, liberal city that is completely out of touch with where the average person is? That you do not push for single-payer health care? That you do not push for a living wage or tuition-free public college or trade schools? That you do not give a shit about people in Flint, Michigan, or East Palestine, Ohio? That you love Israel and its endless war and its devastation over the entire world? That's why people hate you. And that's why people are flocking to people like Fuentes. I don't want to be right about all of this, but it's too obvious why this is happening. I bring this up because I think that the context regarding Fuentes needs to be heard, because for him, his messaging regarding Israel is why he's getting where he's getting. And here's what he had to say.
Now do you understand why they don't want people criticizing Israel? Now do you get it? This is what, this is what it has always been about. Israel wants us to bomb Iran. They want us to bomb the Houthis. They want us to bomb Hezbollah. They want us to bomb the IRGC. They want us to give them billions of dollars to bomb their enemies. They want us to defend them when their enemies shoot back. This is what we call an unlimited, unconditional security guarantee. It is a relationship without limits, and there are no conditions attached to it. Think about every way that we help them. We're giving them money. We're giving them missiles. We're giving them our most advanced technology. We're bombing their enemies for them. We're defending them when their enemies shoot back. We're giving them the weapons to kill their enemies. We're vetoing resolutions in the UN condemning their conduct. Their economy is dependent on Israeli billionaires and the private charity of U.S. donors. This is what you call an unlimited, unconditional guarantee. The U.S. government treats Israel better than they treat its own states.
There are not enough people out there saying what he's saying. Now we say it. Now we obviously say it in the context of explaining why Fuentes' approach is the wrong one overall in totality. However, this statement regarding the conditions that Israel finds itself with compared to us, is there anyone who would deny this? Honestly, anybody? It's clear as day. They get away with mass murder. I was going to say murder, but no, it's mass murder. That's what they get away with. And they are destroying our country, and people are getting desperate. And Trump has lost it completely. And that's why Nick is picking up where a lot of the America Firsters are at. Jen doesn't think Trump is going to make it through this term. And that includes whether he lives or not, interestingly enough. I don't know where I stand as of yet, as far as that goes. But it will be interesting to see what happens. I am not sure how this is going to end. But however it does, for Trump in particular, it's not going to be good. He's running out of places to go. Now, he has his loyal following for sure. But he's now made enemies of Massey. He's made enemies of MTG. He's making enemies of Candace and Tucker. And pretty soon, if he hasn't already, made an enemy of Nick Fuentes. And that is just more of the same. Continue to build itself out.
Trump's government is treating Israel better than it treats California. Remember when they snuck in a provision that said FEMA won't do search and rescue operations if a city doesn't pledge allegiance to Israel? There are more conditions on FEMA helping Americans drowning in a hurricane than there are conditions on U.S. military aid to Israel. Think of that. Florida gets hit by a hurricane, and America's support for Florida is more conditional and more limited than America's support for Israel killing women and children in Gaza.
And that is the truth. As a Floridian, I can vouch for that. I've seen enough damage happen to this state, although we got very lucky this hurricane season. Probably won't happen again for a very long time, but thankfully. There wasn't that much damage, but it's true. We saw what happened with Harvey, among others. Saw what happened in North Carolina. We saw how they used the damage of the hurricane for votes. But the second Israel needs anything, they get exactly what they want. For now. For now. No, I'm not that adventurous, Canavanabus. But hey, gotta love the profile picture. It's always a good one. Yeah, Fuentes is on the money on this.
That's the dynamic. Without limits, without conditions.
This is a two-parter because Fuentes decides to go in once and for all on Trump to finish it out.
This is a crisis of Trump's own making. You have no one to blame but yourself. You can't blame your own base for asking you to do what you promised to do. You can't say that your base doesn't see the bigger picture or they're conspiracy theorists. If you played into that for years, which you did, the chickens have come home to roost now. They leaned into this stuff. They promised it. And you could say they bit off more than they can chew. Then you lied brazenly and openly. You tried to trick people. It didn't work. And now the chickens have come home to roost. And here's the issue. This goes to the center of what the Trump revolution is all about. And I've been saying this for weeks and months and years now. The whole idea behind Trumpism, fundamentally, it's an anti-corruption movement. Don't you know that? At the bottom of it, MAGA, it's not really about being conservative. It's not super conservative. It's not about being libertarian. It's not about being Republican. The core of the MAGA message was about anti-corruption. It was an anti-corruption campaign because the first thing that Trump said is, I'm a self-funder. I'm a billionaire. I'm so rich that I cannot be bought. And what's the implication? The implication is Congress and the president is bought by the money. And they're compromised in all sorts of ways. They're compromised by money and the quid pro quo, those expectations. They're compromised in other ways by blackmail. They're controlled by the media. And so the fundamental premise of Trumpism is, I can't be bought, therefore I'm incorruptible. That was the point.
If you go back and you listen to the speeches that Trump gave and Bernie gave in the summer of 2015, they're not the same, but they sure sound alike. On the second day in office, Trump 86'd the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was one of the key issues that he and Bernie aligned on. And Hillary Clinton said she would have absolutely passed it if she was elected. There's a reason why Trump's movement became as big as it did. But a lot of people are seeing the system for what it is now. If Trump can lie, of course he's a natural-born liar. Eventually, you have to accept that this system cannot be salvaged. It can't. It's too obvious now. And there are people who still want to pal around and pretend like there's something to save here. What are you saving? What are you getting yourself worked up about? Elections matter and you should still participate. But if you think we're not in a revolutionary period, go back to sleep. Just and stay asleep. You are either going to wake up or you're never going to wake up in this moment right now. It's too clear that that's what we're dealing with. And there's a reason why Fuentes is getting the type of traction that he's getting.
If I put up $70 million to run my primary campaign and I'm a billionaire, maybe I could do that in the general. And if I have all small dollar donors, the people can literally overthrow the corrupt government. All the super PACs, all the billionaires, all the money will be against. But if we have one billionaire and a ton of small dollar donors, and maybe some like small business owner, millionaire types, then maybe we really could have a president that isn't beholden to anybody. So that's actually central to the MAGA message. This idea of draining the swamp, it's not like it's one among other things that's critical. And Epstein epitomizes this problem, because what is the Epstein playbook? He's got a private island. Why? So that he controls who goes there, and he can see everything and record everything that happens. That's the point. There's no jurisdiction. He's got a private island. He's got his townhouse in Manhattan rigged with cameras and microphones. Why?
Because evidently there is photos of me and of my good friend Donnie. Yeah, that's right. You're totally calling it. And we were doing some really inappropriate things. I just thought, you know, what the hell? Just give it a shot. Slick Willie's always ready for some action. And even if I have to close my eyes and pretend it's somebody else, hey, it worked that one time. No, it worked several times. Don't pretend like you didn't enjoy it. You totally loved it. It was the best you've ever. I'm the best at everything, including getting on my knees. As you've seen, I've done it a lot for Israel. I even did it for Willie Boy. So, hey, you just got to enjoy it while you can. But Nick's right.
He's in bed with the Israeli government, the British government, the American government. His entire operation is to entice and induce powerful people to let their guard down so that he can compromise them with blackmail and then control them on behalf of some entity. Who even knows? Probably Israeli intelligence. But honestly, who knows? Maybe he's a mercenary. Maybe he worked with Israeli intelligence and British intelligence and or the CIA. Most likely Israeli intelligence. But that gets to the heart of why people don't trust the government. Because people have this idea that the reason America is losing, you know, why are we powerful and rich, but the country's getting worse? It's because of the leadership. The leadership is steering us into the rocks because they're being manipulated. They're being controlled.
One nation under blackmail, as Whitney Webb says. I know everyone thinks it's it's a pedophilia ring. It could be a lot of things. Do I think it's true that Slick Willie and the Donald had a little bit of oral action? Maybe one way, maybe not the other. Who knows? Do I care? No, I don't care. What I do care about is that we are not in control of our country in terms of policy, in terms of money, in terms of quality of life. We don't have anything. They're going to run with the, gay encounter between two presidents because it's what so many people like, which is gossip. They like talking about stuff that has no bearing on their life. Frankly, the people who generally want to talk about that stuff are ones that don't have everyday problems, especially when it comes to things like putting food on the table. But those problems are real, and we face them on a regular basis. I want to be very clear here. I don't really, like I said, I don't care. We can have fun with it. But do I actually think that there was some type of a sexual encounter between Bill and Trump? Look, if there's one thing we have learned universally And please subscribe to Revolutionary Change on Rumble if you haven't already. We are at a crossroads, and we have to think long and hard about how we go forward. I don't know what is going to be the safest route, but it doesn't involve worrying about whether or not Trump and Bill had a sexual encounter. They will talk about this for weeks. And at no point will the conversation about healthcare, education, corrections, the environment, foreign policy become anywhere within the sphere of the daily discourse that is corporate media or big-time independent media. It will here. And we will continue to talk about it. And we are very fortunate to have each and every one of you with us this evening. It has been a great, great show. I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too. For the final time, please make sure that you go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we do have some additional super chats that we must get to. And here we go. JG with the $2. Get a revolver, at least, Peter. Smith & Wesson, is that what you're recommending? We'll see. Amina Bushtcook, thank you so much for the $1.99. And again for the $1.99. Thank you very much for your support. Gus, thank you for the $10. Keep spreading the light, bro. You're doing a great job. Gus, thank you for your support. We keep doing a great job because of supporters like you. JG with the $5. 59 million Democrats, 77% of Harris voters believe Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, per latest 2025 polls. Democrat base deserves credit. Yeah, but they're not willing to vote against what the establishment tells them to. That's the problem. They can say that they don't support it, and I believe they don't. I don't believe that there are really that many people that are Republicans that support it. But I believe that the concept of actually bucking the system, bucking the ruling class, still yet to see that. And that's the real change. Will we see it? At some point, you can only squeeze the people so tight. JG with the $10. The America First Party in the 1940s was primarily associated with America First Committee, AFC. Dr. Seuss explicitly portrayed the America First Committee as Nazi adjacent. Now many Nazis are today. Any movement that is going to get outside of the two-party system, and I mean any. The Greens can't get their act together. A bunch of hippity-dippity tree-hugging, super progressives. Libertarians, incapable of living in a normal society, thinking that every man, woman, and child is there to pick themselves up by their bootstraps regardless of circumstance. Doesn't work. DSA, super hippity-dippity and always caving to the Democratic Party when it's all said and done. The point is, to actually break away from the two-party system, it's a lot harder than you think. Which is why people are still trying to fight within the two-party system, which is an even worse folly on most people's parts. Nonpartisan, collective organizing across class lines is how the real change will happen. That's a fact. I like tacos. What JG 1982 said. Thank you for the $10. JG with the $5. 20% of Republicans believe Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. 14.8 million versus 59.3 million Democrats. Well, I'd like to see those polls, but I also believe that there is a different level of manipulation that is going on in terms of the discourse as far as where people get their information from. I do believe that there is probably more favorable language in terms of what's really going on. And this, again, is going for corporate media talking points. This is what you will normally hear more so on the likes of CNN, maybe MSDNC, but certainly not on Fox News, which still has a lion's share of the GOP vote. And we all know that Rupert Murdoch-owned Fox News is going to continue to espouse the pro-Israel narrative until they no longer have an audience. That much we can say for sure. William Sands, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate you, my friend. JG with the $2. Fuentes was with Catboy. Google it. I don't know who Catboy is, but I guess I'll take you partially at your word. Cheetah with the $2. Thank you very much for your support. Brian Burns with the $2. Super chat won't let me make obvious point about Zionism. Jen tried to make a point, I think, about Israel or Zionism on our live stream last week and could not post it. So totally understood. And Brian Burns with the $2 again, it relates to being white. Fair enough. And JG with the $5. Greens are most pure anti-genocide, but numbers are trash. We need numbers. Yes, we need numbers, and we have them. Unite the working class. That's what we need to do. And we're doing it. Maybe not across all the lines that everybody necessarily wants, but we're doing what we can. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Free Palestine. And we'll see you Monday. Have a good night, guys.